Tilde. I may live to regret this, because this is the most sensitive nerve that you can hit on YouTube at the moment. But let's do it anyway, and see what happens. Let's consider for a moment all the recent nonsense around YouTube demonetizations, free speech, and alternate platforms. Time for the unpopular opinions that cause all of the butthurt, which seems to be all that these op-eds do anymore. So recently, you may have heard about the spate of demonetizations that have been happening across YouTube. Some people going so far as to state, or at least believe, that there is some underlying political motivation to this on the side of YouTube. This point of view might not be entirely uninformed. After all, we have seen ample evidence of suspicious bans, shadow bans, unverifications, unsubscriptions, and posts simply not appearing in feeds and timelines when logged into certain accounts that are clearly visible when viewed by the public on many platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and yes, even YouTube, especially in regards to the suspicious and seemingly automated unsubscriptions and lack of feed updates. Of course, how much of this is intentional compared to simple system bugs or, say, problems with server or local refresh rates can be debated, but it has been demonstrated on other platforms that this pattern does seem to disproportionately affect anti-social justice or anti-feminist types, and those who are openly conservative in any capacity, or at the very least, not openly progressive. Is this the case on YouTube? Well, it doesn't appear to be, and I say appear because of the following. While yes, a lot of people in the so-called rationalist, atheist, skeptic community have had their content affected by the YouTube not advertiser friendly policy, they are not unique in this. Lacey Green has had some of her videos affected by it, although they were remonetized when this was challenged. The Young Turks also claim to have been affected by this, with Aaron Wisocki, I assume that's how you pronounce that, posting on Twitter, "I'm looking at a list of 100 plus videos from 2016 and almost 400 videos from 2015 that were demonetized by @YouTube overnight. #WTF. And the Young Turks definitely fall into the more progressive, left-leaning side of the political spectrum. Even unrelated YouTubers have been hit. For example, a makeup artist channel by the name of Melanie Murphy posted on Twitter, "YouTube's new update means ads are disabled on my acne videos because advertisers don't like it. Seriously, @YouTube," and she affixes screenshots as proof. Something to note here. Even those in the rationalist atheist skeptic community have often had their content also remonetized when they challenge the claim as well. What this seems to imply is that this is something that is being done, somewhat unsurprisingly, by a bot searching for and finding keywords either in the title, content box, or tags, or possibly by image or sound recognition within the video itself, and that when manual checks are requested, the content is often found to be fine and the demonetization was issued in error, although sometimes not. So it would seem to be that people jumping to the conclusion that this is some sort of masterminded politically correct censorship sweep have just got particularly jerky knees, although I would say not without good reason. As mentioned before, we have seen some very suspicious patterns on other websites. But for now, I would encourage people to hold fire on this accusation of political motivation and selective application until further evidence is forthcoming, because it seems to be a universal application. However, as time goes on, it is indeed possible that it may be seen to disproportionately affect some groups more than others, at which point this would require further scrutiny and could quite possibly evolve into an issue of soft censorship. It is early days with this, and so it must be handled with care and attention to detail. So let's address the argument of censorship. Is this really censorship? Well, the answer is simply a complete, outright, and flat no. Not in the true sense of the word anyway, and we'll touch on the maybe kinda sorta possibilities of this later. It is not true censorship insofar as you can still publish the content. There is nothing YouTube is doing to prevent you from spreading the piece of content that you want. You are still able to make the video that you want, publish the video that you want, and have them viewed by the public, as long as they are within the YouTube terms of service, of course, something that everyone on YouTube agreed to when they signed up. YouTube is, after all, a private company, not a public space, despite the illusion that it is because of its population and relative position of monopoly in the market of user-generated content. This, I think, is a more valid tangent on which to address YouTube, not as calling this an act against free speech, which it is not. Private companies have every right to conduct their organizations how they see fit with regard to codes of conduct. The bigger question and issue is the fact that YouTube holds a position of pseudo-monopoly on this kind of content platform by virtue of its own success, and thus its size of user base. This then raises all manner of interesting questions about companies' duty of care to its users, if any, and then opens up an entire discussion on legal intervention against companies that hold such monopolies to force them to change in line with citizen demands, something that can be very difficult to argue in an online environment that is, by its very nature, international. If someone's definition of censorship includes being able to say pretty much anything they want, not have that silenced and still be viewed by the public, then I'd be very intrigued to hear their definition of censorship. I suppose one could try to argue for the spirit of censorship, but that's verging a little into feels before reals territory. Although I do think it is worth considering the idea that the concept of censorship in regards to government intervention only could be an antiquated model that needs reform, but then we begin verging into unusual territory. For example, in some cases it could be argued that companies like Google, Twitter, Facebook, etc. are bigger than governments, more powerful than governments, more important than governments, especially in certain ways. However, as private companies, they have the right to operate as they see fit in regards to conduct. To state otherwise is a fundamental infringement on people's private property rights. But to state that because of the size of these companies and how their services are, in some cases, nigh essential for people's ability to function in modern society, makes them a de facto public space, open to laws and duty that they are not obliged to, is equally fallacious. A company does not cease being private because of its size and how essential it is to the public. So we're in a kind of strange dichotomy. The more libertarian leaning should be hailing this as a glorious conquest of the free market. The best platforms have won, and everyone uses them, but anyone is still free to make competition. It's just that that competition fails because the established companies are too damn big and too damn good and interwoven into people's lives already. And yet, these are often the same people now complaining that they don't have all the rights that they would have under a public government or a socialized space, because the definition of censorship and acts against free speech can only be applied to and be enforced by and against governments in public spaces. As such, this could be a total failure of what we consider the concept of censorship and free speech to be, by virtue of their very definitions and concepts being outdated and based on a pre-internet era. But this is a very large potential topic that would probably warrant being explored in a video of its own. The ability to actually apply public law concepts such as free speech and censorship to private companies, and how this might require a massive shift in how we perceive or understand the differences between public and private and free speech and censorship. Because of the internet, we now live in a unique time when private is basically public. And this is something that has not really happened before. Not in such a casual, everyday manner, at least. But this is a massive side tangent that, as I've said, may bear being teased out, however awkwardly and painfully, in a video of its own that would no doubt ruffle all the feathers of everyone, because it will start touching on hypothetical political, social, and economic models, and there's already thousands of those floating around, defended by people whose wholesale purchase of such hypothetical ideas could quite easily be called zealotry. I really have no better word to describe people who are so convinced a hypothetical model with no actual real-world working models would somehow just work and have no flaws. Every system has flaws. When people begin to make claims that loss of monetization on their videos is a disincentive to content creation, they're not wrong. Certainly knowing that you're going to put in however many hours of work and see nothing for it does suck. However, to those people I would ask, how did you ever get started on YouTube if you were only ever in it for the money and not the passion and love of what you do? If you're still able to say whatever you want but just not receive money for it, and this is the thing that stops you from making content, then you're not actually advocating for free speech. You're only advocating for getting paid for your speech. These things are not the same. People hiding behind the lack of payment as a reason to make less content or be more picky about what they make are in fact openly saying that they care more about the money than their ability to speak, and thus openly stating a virtue that is anything but the virtue of free speech they claim to be trying to defend. It's not a free speech issue, it's a cutting into profits issue. You don't need money to exercise free speech. Talk is cheap. In fact, it's totally free. That's how everyone on YouTube got started. Losing some money doesn't mean you've lost your right to speak. Now, it is important to consider the incentives versus disincentives position, because this is actually what the issue is. It is not a censorship nor a free speech issue. I have mentioned before on this channel, and indeed received a lot of flack, for suggesting that people need to be more generous towards content creators that they enjoy in regards to direct support, be this Patreon or PayPal donations, purchasing licensed or official merchandise, etc., so that the content creators are not beholden unto the whims of video traffic and advertisers for their income. This got a lot of blowback, people saying this is entitlement and content creators should get a real job, etc. Unfortunately, that doesn't hold water. If you are benefiting from a product's existence, in this case video creation, and you want that to continue, or indeed increase, then you must consider being willing to treat this content as you would any other product that you buy or rent, like a Netflix or Amazon Prime account. Content creation takes time and effort, some more than others, but it all takes a toll on the creator to some degree. The time spent making entertainment for you is time that could be spent either at leisure for those of us whom YouTube is a hobby or side project, but for those for whom it is a full-time job, content creation takes time away from other revenue streams, or indeed simply entire other careers or education that could be more lucrative. Everyone has bills to pay, even YouTubers. If you want them to continue to be able to create content for you to enjoy, then you must ensure it is more lucrative for them to continue making content for you, rather than finding more gainful employment elsewhere. One of the best ways to do this is by direct contribution in any form. This way you cut out the middleman of advertisers and provide content creators a more stable income, thus removing the potential problems of things like Google going full draconian on what is and is not allowed to be monetized. Consider the following. If someone has even as little as 1,000 followers, and all 1,000 followers enjoy your content and pledge only $1 a month, that content creator now has a baseline income of $12,000 a year, assuming zero ad revenue. This, while not enough to live on, does basically ensure that outside of YouTube, that person will only need to work a job maybe 2, 3, or 4 days a week, depending on pay, to earn a living wage. This gives them 3 to 5 days a week to produce the content that you want to see. Let's say you have 10 content creators you really enjoy and want to be able to make content for you all the time. $10 a month, the equivalent of an online video service subscription going directly to the people you want it to. Pennies build pounds, as the saying goes. Reliance on advertiser revenue is entirely within your hands as an audience member to wipe out completely. The problem is, on the internet, everything is free. And I use the term free with very big quote marks. And people have become used to this. Hell, some people even feel entitled to something for nothing online. Just use adblock and you don't get annoyed while being able to get everything you want while actively hamstringing the person making that content that you enjoy, but you just don't have to think about that. Now, this is not me saying, turn off that pesky adblock, Matt. Quite the opposite. I actively encourage people to ad block because I loathe and despise advertising and its manipulative and bullshit ways. However, in the absence of people willingly purchasing content, adverts are a necessary evil. This is where we have to consider YouTube Red. YouTube has, for a while now, in certain areas, the ability to purchase a YouTube Red membership. YouTube Red is advert-free YouTube, and most importantly, your payment is then divvied up among the content creators that you watch. So for the sake of simplicity, if your YouTube Red subscription costs $10 and you watch 5 people equally and YouTube takes a 50% cut, YouTube will get $5. The content creators will receive the other 5 divvied equally among them, assuming you watch them all equally, giving them $1 each. This is a several 1,000% increase in the money they would earn from your single view in relation to AdSense, which is a fraction of a cent, given that YouTube adverts pay per clicks in the 1,000, with a typical payout rate of anywhere from $1 to about $10 per 1,000 views, which would put your contribution via adverts at 0.001 to 0.01 of a cent. So one could hypothesize this move by YouTube to alter their ToCs to demonetize a large number of videos could be a move to attempt to increase the popularity of YouTube Red as a means of helping to fund content creators and thus YouTube itself. So I suppose now we get to the alternative platforms thing. I hate social media. I have made this pretty clear on many occasions. Tried Facebook, couldn't automate it, hated it, deleted it. Tried Twitter, hate it because nothing productive can be achieved in 140 characters, it's fucking cancer, and just serves to make people talk in sound bites that lead to misunderstandings, strawmen, and lies. I have more or less completely abandoned Twitter because of how awful it is, hence my account is now automated to post video links. But of course people always want more. More ways to connect, more ways to get content. With all the recent controversy surrounding social media, we have seen a new platform advertised, Minds.com, as a new safe means of being able to communicate with others where your freedom of speech will supposedly always be protected. I'm very skeptical of this. However, I have founded myself an account which you can find at minds.com/tealdeer, as in teal the colour and deer the animal, because you're only allowed letters in your screen name because Minds.com is racist and doesn't recognize those of us whose names are spelled with semicolons. This will more than likely just turn into another automated dumping ground for YouTube links, assuming they allow for automation, but it does exist as a backup just in case YouTube goes full draconian and actually starts censoring content by removing or blocking videos rather than just demonetizing them. So if you are also on Minds.com and enjoy following feeds that basically never update, then go find me over there. The address again is minds.com/tealdeer. Hopefully this video has promoted some thought if nothing else, but will more than likely just attract the downvotes because I'm not perpetuating the narrative that YouTube is censoring free speech and this is all YouTube apologia or some such nonsense. Yes, I've seen a lot of very jerky knees and irrational hatred leveled at people who even dare try to frame this outside the YouTube is censoring me paradigm. A quick scroll through the comment section of Mundane Matt's video, let's talk about hashtag YouTube party is over and why it's getting out of hand, does result in a few cringes and facepalms. Oh well, such is life, and you have the censored ability to say so in the comments section. So, absolute final thoughts. YouTube is being stupid with this. Absolutely, they are. This policy is not actually new, it's been in effect for a while, but is just getting better advertised so more people are finding out about it. To give a personal anecdote on it, I remember a couple of months ago finding my AdSense had dropped significantly despite a constant output of content. On checking some of my videos, I noticed the monetization was still enabled, as in the little sign was green. However, when inspecting the video itself on the appropriate tab, all the little checkboxes for ad locations on the video had been unchecked, and this happened on several videos. Possibly part of the same bug or change. Who knows? So YouTube is being stupid. Yes, undoubtedly and absolutely, because this move encourages people to have to simply change names and titles for videos to get around their vaguely worded policy in order to enable monetization. As I've said, this is not censorship in the strictest sense, because people are still able to talk about what they want, how they want. This just disincentivizes straight talking and encourages more vagary, metaphor, and euphemism, which is not good. But people who are also trying to posit that they have some sort of right to have their videos monetized are also being stupid. This is not a right. YouTube is under no obligation to offer this service to you, and yet they do. I'd be very open to someone demonstrating where exactly in their legal system it is dictated they have a right to monetize their YouTube videos, but I won't hold my breath waiting for that proof. No rights are being violated here. Terms of service dictate what rights you have on YouTube, and the terms of service have altered, as YouTube has the right to do, and as you agreed to when you signed up to YouTube. Do not make the mistake of conflating a right with a privilege that you have because you agreed to be allowed it. Now cue all the knee-jerk, "You're just like the feminists, you've gone full SJW, you've gone full Macintosh" arguments because I used the trigger word privilege and people can't actually engage constructively. It is still a word, and it does still have a meaning outside of the crazies. In this instance, I believe YouTube just really needs to clear up what exactly it means in its terms of service. The vague language is what is causing many of these issues and needs to be fixed to mention specific terms or instances. Even people who have great knowledge of YouTube, and indeed even directly interact with people at Google, are still being hit with this because of its vague, amorphous nature. This should be a very big sign that these terms of service are not clear enough and are open to being either misunderstood by users or open to subjective interpretation and enforcement by YouTube, which is why we've seen ridiculous things like acne treatment videos being hit, videos about depression and suicide awareness, etc. All valid topics of discussion. The most important thing in these videos, I suppose, is that even though they are unmonetized, they are still permitted to exist. The actual speech has not been hampered. Perhaps another workaround could be allowing advertisers to pick their content better. I do find it hard to believe that there is any content that is truly not advertiser friendly. Look at some of the more edgy and supposedly offensive things we have on television. Shows like South Park, which deal almost exclusively in controversial subjects and events. They still have advertisers. Go even further. Head on over to any of the deeper, darker recesses of the internet. Websites that host extreme graphic pornography, or gore pictures, or gore videos. And there are still adverts on these websites. So clearly, there are advertisers who don't much care where their product is shown, or because their product is in some way, somehow related. Maybe YouTube having a better system for linking advertisers with appropriate content would be better than just blanket stating, "This is not advertiser friendly." In the game of capitalism and free markets, everything has ad space. It's just a case of who's willing to fill it, and there is always someone willing to do so. And in this sense, I think Google and YouTube are failing to make that connection. I've attempted to end this script numerous times now, but I keep going in and re-editing because there always seems to be some new thought to add or something else to flesh out to try to counter the inevitable angry knee-jerks from people who just want this blindly condemned as the attack on free speech that it isn't. I think it is important that the YouTube community let it be known that this change was a poor decision, and that it needs an overhaul to make it clearer what exactly it does affect and what it doesn't. And as I've suggested, maybe a better means of pairing videos with appropriate advertisers, because I maintain the position that there is no such thing as content that is not advertiser friendly. But I would just suggest a calmer, more measured approach. Shitting the bed and railing against this as if YouTube has basically cut out your tongue when most of the people making these comments aren't even content creators but content consumers isn't helpful. and calls that this is censorship only sensationalizes this and serves to make those actually trying to deal with this look foolish and ignorant on what exactly free speech is. But hey, I guess I'm just trying to police the internet and tell people what to do while being a smug, arrogant cuck from my high horse, or something. Best to just steal the thunder from those supposed rebuttals before they get here, huh? You didn't tell me what I wanted to hear when I wanted to hear it. Stop trying to actually think about the issue and flesh out a nuanced position on the topic. Look at the big picture. It's just censorship. Unsub, fuck you, kill yourself. Original thought isn't allowed here. I jest, but I do wonder how long it's going to be before something like that crops up unironically.